Hey everyone, welcome back. So now we're going to go back to working on our original app here called your location app. And you can actually see our Reddit thumbnail API is also updating, which is pretty neat. So depending on when you're viewing this, you should get some different pictures here as well for your little app that we built. Anyway, let's go back and open up that location app that we've been working on. Just have it down here. And let me just give you a quick refresher on what we did since we last left this app. So I'm just going to zoom in for you. So we have a main div here with the ID of info, and inside of it we have several nested paragraph tags, which also have some span tags inside of it, which just contain some text. So here we have your country that's bolded, and then we have a couple span tags for the flag, country name, city name, and the IP address. So these are just right now hard coded in here. As you can see, they're just typed in. So what we're going to do in this lecture is use an API so that we can load in the country name, the city, and the IP address dynamically. And the flag will do that in a different lecture. So let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I want to do is add an ID to the rest of our span tags that we want to grab a reference to in JavaScript. So we have an ID of IP for this span tag here. And we also want to modify the city as well as the country. And then the flag as well. We'll add an ID to that right now as well, even though we're going to change that in a different lecture. So let's start with the flag span. Give it an ID of just flag. For country, we'll give that an ID of just CON, something short. And then city, we'll give that an ID of CIT. Perfect. And now I'm going to zoom back out. So now let's take a look at an API that we can use to get the IP address that we want, as well as some other information about the person that's going to be viewing this app. So for this, we can use something called freegeoip.net. So let me just zoom in for you here. You can just navigate or do a Google search for that, and you should be able to find this site. So this provides a public HTTP API for software developers to search the geolocation of an IP address. So you can just read this here if you want. But basically it gives us an endpoint here. A JSON endpoint that we can use will give us information about the person, so like the IP address, country, etc. So you can just copy this down here. Or just up here, you can just type /JSON. So if you have your URL typed in exactly like this here, hit enter. And I'll zoom back out for you here. And then we get to the API endpoint. So this contains our lovely JSON data. And if you want, you can copy and paste this data into the online JSON viewer. But this is simple enough to view like this, and we can have all the information we need. We have the IP right here, the country code, country name, and then I believe that's all we need for now. And just to let you know, I'm using a VPN, so this isn't actually my real country or city or IP address. And I'm actually going to change this later on to show you how our app changes as the IP changes. So anyway, for now, let's go back into CodePen and then start adding some JavaScript. So let's actually go ahead and copy this URL first because we're going to be using it. So I'm going to press Ctrl+C. And then inside here, we're going to start using jQuery to grab that JSON data. So this should be quite familiar. So use the $ for jQuery, .get JSON. And inside here, the first argument is just the URL to our JSON API endpoint. So this just contains all our JSON data that we're going to be working with. And then we add our callback function. And then we can open that up. And the callback function gets passed the results from this URL, and then we can name that whatever we want. I'm just going to name it data, something short and simple. And now let's add the information that we want, and we're going to store it into variables. So the first one We want to grab the country, and we're going to set that equal to data dot. And if we zoom back out, country is under country name right here, and that'll give us the country name here. So we want data dot country underscore name. So back in here, it's data dot underscore country name. So now United States should be stored in this variable here. And then we'll do the same thing for city and IP. So I'll do var city equals data.city and var IP equals data.ip. So this city and IP just corresponds to the keys that we have here in our JSON data. So there should be city key, which gives us the city, and an IP here, this first one, which gives us the IP. And then we're just storing that into these three variables here. Alright, and now we'll simply use the jQuery text method to update the text of our HTML elements. So I'm going to just do that right before here, right under where we declare our variables. So I'm going to use the jQuery selector. And the first one we'll select CON, which corresponds to that country span. So this corresponds to the ID up here. So we're targeting this span tag right here with this selector. I'm going to do dot text to change the text of it, and we're going to change it to whatever we pass into here. And in this case, we want to change it to this country variable, which holds the country data from our API. So we want to change that to dot country. And then we'll do the same for the city and the IP as well. So use a jQuery selector for the city, dot text. Then we'll pass in the name of the city. So this hashtag CIT corresponds to this span tag here. So it should be changing the text here. And lastly, let's update the IP dot text to that IP variable, which holds the IP. And we should be good to go. The last thing we want to do is make sure we have jQuery added so we can actually use those methods. So just in settings, go to quick add, select jQuery, click save and close, and now we should be getting the proper values here. So we have United States, San Jose, and the IP address, which is exactly what we needed. So just to recap what we're doing here, we use the jQuery selector, grabbing a reference to the IDs that we added earlier to our span tags, and then with the text method, we pass the text that we want to display. So in this case, it's the specific values that we get from our JSON data, which we pass to these variables, which we pass into this text method here. And that leads to us getting the proper text displayed here. So now I'm going to go ahead and change my location here using my software. So I'm just going to disconnect for a second. And then I'm going to connect to, let's go with Florida for now. Oops, let me zoom back out. We'll just give that a minute to connect. So right now we're in United States, San Jose with this IP address. So I just changed my location. So I'm going to hit refresh and we should get an updated location. Perfect. So now we're still in the United States, but now we're in Tampa with this IP address. And for you, you should be seeing your own country and city and your own IP address. And in the next lectures, we'll move forward and start finishing up this app. I'll see you there.